me and Eric over the weekend kind of attacked the NBA lottery. And the New York Knicks, for some reason, every single year get screwed. They're amongst the league's worst 6 teams every single year. And for some reason, besides last year, they couldn't even come close to the top 3 picks. They couldn't. They got the number 3 pick last year. They got R.J. Barrett, a piece that they can build their team around. We don't know if he's that superstar that they can build their team around, but he is a piece that you can build your team around. We were expecting possibly a LaMelo Ball sighting for the New York Knicks this year, being that the Knicks really liked him. They need a point guard. They need a wing guard that can do a lot of things, shoot, especially as good as him, and could do other things on the court. With his size and his ability, he would fit what the Knicks are looking for. But the Knicks, for some reason or somehow, had a 9% chance to get the number 1 pick and fell all the way short to the number 8th pick, which completely makes absolutely no sense. And my argument to this is, with the NHL and the NBA, is why is it that I understand you're trying to protect of throwing away games, and why isn't the MLB doing it? Why isn't the NFL doing it? Because the NFL, there are teams that have done that for years, throw away games, especially knowing that after they lose their first 5 games, or they're 1-4 or 1-5, and percentages will tell you the chances of you making the playoffs is slim to none. Well, they pretty much trade away pieces, or players get hurt, or coaches get fired, and the season is over, and they get the number 1 pick. Or the top 5 pick.
Football's a little harder though to do that because there's only 16 games though.
No, it's not. It's the same. It's the same thing. If you know percentages wise, if you're 1-4 and only 4 or 5 teams have made it, being 1-4 in the beginning of the season, you know that you're not making the playoffs. The chances of you making the playoffs are slim to none. So what do? You try to protect the team and try to protect your draft stock, and that's what the NFL does. We've seen how many times have we seen the Washington Redskins do it over the years? How many times have we seen it with the Chicago Bears on what they've done over the years? How many times do we see it with the Miami Dolphins? Or the Arizona Cardinals? We've seen this by a lot. Oakland Raiders. We've seen this.
Is that because they're deliberately doing it?
We
or
don't
the team
know.
Is just that bad?
How do we know?
Right.
Are you sitting in the locker room? Are you listening to what John Gruden is saying, or any of these coaches have said over the years? No, you're not sitting in the locker room. You don't know what they're talking about. So if the NFL is not doing it, and the MLB is not doing it, why the hell is the NHL and the NBA doing it? And it bothers me because the New York Knicks, and let's be honest, they were the 5th worst team in the NBA this year. So they should have been, at worst, getting the 5th pick. Instead, because of this new lottery thing that they're doing, they fell all the way to the 8th pick, which pretty much puts them out of contention to even think, even if they were the 5th pick, moving up 2 spots is not, you're not going to have to give up much.
Right, and you were showing me the percentages, I think, on Saturday when we were doing this with Eric. They had similar percentages to the 6 and 7 teams, which shouldn't happen unless they are tied. And I don't know if I've said this before on this show. I definitely have said it on others. I always thought the lottery system, if they have it, should be based on the amount of games, not the amount of percentages. So let's say the worst team wins 16 games or something like that. So that would be, 66 losses. Do 66 for that team. The next team gets 64. Let's say they're 18-64, and do it like that. So if they're 2 games worse, they should get 2 less.
It's just not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah.
The Knicks got screwed.
Right.
And that's the way I look at it. I'm not screaming as a Knicks fan. I'm not doing that. And I'm not going to waste my time on this show saying, well, the Knicks got screwed. But come on. Logic would tell you that the New York Knicks have been screwed year in and year out for the draft. Now, they did draft a great player. Phil Jackson drafted Kristaps Porzingis and decided to trade him away. Now, he didn't want to be here in New York. So if a player doesn't want to be here, why keep him? Now he's over there in Dallas with Luka Doncic, and they're right now up 2-1 against the Clippers, and everybody thinks that Dallas is going to win this series, okay? Just because of Luka's 3-point. And I'll tell you, Luka is a star in the making. He's a special player. And everything that Mark Cuban had to trade up for, and that's the problem with the Knicks. The Knicks had a chance to trade up for Luka Doncic, and they were in a better spot to move up for Luka Doncic. They just didn't.
I don't think so. I think the Hawks were only 2 picks behind the Mavericks, and the Knicks were picking 9. That's when they took Kevin Knox.
The Knicks were picking 8, and Dallas was picking 7.
No, Dallas was picking 5, and I think the Hawks were.
When was Luka Doncic? He was drafted at 5, wasn't he?
Yeah. So Dallas traded up to 5, I think, from 7, and I think the Knicks were picking at 9.
No, the Knicks were picking at 8. Kevin Knox was the 8th pick.
All right. So I guess maybe the other thing you got to factor into that too is Dallas maybe has more to expend because they were a better team at that time, though. Too.
I don't think so. The Knicks could have moved up and got him. If the Knicks wanted Luka Doncic, they could have moved up and got him, and they would have had that other superstar with R.J. Barrett, and then you would have had, you'd be in a different position right now as a franchise. Now you see actually you would have Kristaps Porzingis, Luka Doncic, and R.J. Barrett on one team. I mean, seriously, that's what you would have had.
Kristaps would have never left.
He would have never left if Doncic was there. So that's the problem with the New York Knicks and their organization. They have made bad moves in the draft over the years, and then they've gotten screwed with the NBA and where the NBA is moving these lottery picks. This lottery that was the one thing Daniel Stearns did it all wrong. He did it all wrong. Out of all the things that Daniel Stern did so well for the NBA, the one thing that I completely, absolutely hate is this draft lottery thing. And I understand they're trying to sell tickets and they're trying to sell endorsements and sponsorships. It's another TV deal that they can have for one day or for one event. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I didn't watch the draft lottery. I didn't because you know what?
Either, no.
You know why I didn't want to watch it? Because
you knew the Knicks.
I knew the Knicks were going to get screwed. And this is what's happened year in and year out. Now, do the Knicks have enough draft stock to move up to get who they want? Absolutely do. And Golden State, I mean, the story's coming out that Golden State is going to push that draft stock, that pick, that number 2 pick, to teams that will be interested. And they're going to want a player for it. I don't think the Knicks have a player that Golden State's going to want unless they bring a third team involved with it. Unless Golden State wants to take 2 first-round draft picks for 1. I wouldn't do that if I was Golden State. I would just draft the best player available and put him on your team.
Yeah.
And let him develop with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Wiggins and all the players that you have right now. You have a chance to win now.
Yep. The other thing, too, with the Warriors is why that could make it hard, especially is if the player that they're getting is on another big contract. Not necessarily a max contract, but just a big contract in general because they got a ton of max contracts.
They're going to trade it. They're obviously going to trade the pick. I mean, everything that we've read is Golden State's going to be looking to move the pick. So there are going to be teams lining up for that pick. And knowing that Bradley Beal is still available, and I do believe that the Wizards are going to move him, I wouldn't be so surprised if I could see Bradley Beal and their pick getting traded for the number 2 pick and Andrew Wiggins in a trade. I could see that because Bradley Beal's better than Andrew Wiggins.
Yes.
And the pick, obviously the number 2 pick, would be the reason, they got to get rid of Andrew Wiggins' contract.
Yeah.
So bringing in Bradley Beal's contract, that will fulfill the position and also fill in a role that they haven't had, a guy, even though Steph Curry is a great shooter and Klay Thompson is a great shooter. Now you got 3 great perimeter shooters. They're practically unstoppable. You can't stop these guys. You put one on one side, one on the other, one in the middle. I mean, you're going to spread out offenses, and you're not going to be able to double team both of them.
Yeah, and also that enables
all 3 of them.
It enables them to move the lineups around too.
Yes,
Steph Curry's specialty is shooting. He's a good passer, but his specialty is shooting. If Beal is a primary ball handler,
and he can play defense, Beal.
Yeah, if he's a primary ball handler, they could put Steph at shooting guard and just in the game plan, just have him specialize shooting more rather than having to be the point guard too. Because I don't know if Klay Thompson, he's a decent ball handler and point guard passer, but he's not really great at it. I think Beal is more of
if they land Bradley Beal, if they put Bradley Beal on that team and they trade Wiggins, they're going to be unstoppable. Yeah. They'll win another 3 titles. That's how good they'll be. And I think Golden State, this really affects me, and this really bothers me because Golden State did not need a top 3 pick. And if the Knicks were right there with Golden State, they wouldn't have gotten the number 2 pick. And that's the problem right now with the lottery. And I'm not saying that I believe the NBA has screwed the New York Knicks. I believe it. I think the NBA loves the fact that the New York Knicks will never win a championship the way they're moving. They're really not. And I think the NBA loves it because they make the Knicks organization out to be the bad organization because James Dolan runs the organization, which I think is a crock of you-know-what. And I as bad as James Dolan has been as an owner,
he's not the only bad one.
He's not the only bad one, and he's also a guy that opens up his pockets. He pays the players. So you can't say he's been cheap like the Wilpons or the Coupons or whatever you call him. This is a guy that opens up his pockets. He spends the money. He paid Carmelo Anthony. He paid all the players that he brought in there. He even paid the coaches. He's still paying the coaches that are gone right now. He's still paying David Fizdale and Derek Fisher and Phil Jackson. I mean, he's still paying those guys, and they're no longer a part of the organization. So it does bother me that the NBA is not, I'm not saying helping the Knicks, and a lot of people say, stop crying about the Knicks, stop crying, being the Knicks crybaby. I'm not crying for the Knicks. I just think that the Knicks they've had the wrong shoe. I think they've gotten the bad shoe.
Yeah, you wouldn't be complaining about this if this was a team in a middle market position. You wouldn't hear about this kind of thing, this track record of bad luck with these draft picks.
Be honest, Speedy. If the Knicks had the second worst record in the league, do you think they got a top 2 pick?
They should, but they won't.
They won't. The Knicks had the second worst record in basketball last year. Where did they get? They got the 3rd pick. They fell from number 2 to number 3. They never get. Now everybody wanted John Morant or Zion Williamson before R.J. Barrett. Now I like R.J. Barrett. And I think R.J. Barrett's going to be a star. I do. I don't know about a superstar, but I think he's going to he'll give the Knicks 25 and 10, 25 and 9. I think he's that type of player. I think he could do that. He can get to the line at will. He just needs to work on his free throws. But all in all, what people wanted was Zion Williamson and John Morant, and the Knicks didn't get any of them because they fell out of the top picks. Now, Golden State, who don't need any picks, they don't need any players because Klay Thompson's coming back, and so is Wiggins. Now you have all these guys on one team. They're going to be extremely dangerous next year, and now you have the number 2 pick, and win or lose, they can trade away the pick or keep the pick and still be in a perfect position to win. So it's not right. I think the NBA needs to figure this out. I think they need to change this, and Eric and me agreed to that. I think they need to change this.
I think what they should do, take the amount of losses that the worst team had, start from there. They get that amount, and then the next worst team gets 1 less, 2 less, however many more games they lost. Just do it like that. It'll be more fair. It'll be more closer for those teams that seem to get robbed all the time, especially in that 3 through 6 range. It seems like a lot of teams get robbed in those times, especially the Knicks, like you were saying. And in hockey, do it based on points. If the worst team, I think the Red Wings are the worst team.
How many top 3 picks have the Knicks had in the last 20 years?
I think only the
R.J. Barrett.
I think one, and wasn't there one in the beginning of the 2000s?
Kristaps Porzingis was the 4th pick.
Okay, yeah. No, I know that because that year the Knicks had the number 1 odds and they didn't get it.
Mm-hmm. And they got the 4th pick, and they got the best player I think in the draft.
You think he's better than Towns?
Oh, I do.
Really?
I think Kristaps is a great player. I
think
think
better than Devin Booker. You think?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's going to win. I think he'll eventually win with Luka Doncic, and you're watching it right now. Kristaps is averaging 22, 23 points a game in the playoffs. His first playoff, and I don't know what Eric was saying because I think KP, this is his first playoff run, and he's playing pretty good. He's playing pretty good basketball. Yeah. So
he's being unfair to a guy who's never been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Negative experience is not necessarily bad experience.
It bothers me because he's going to turn into a star with Luka Doncic, and they're going to win eventually. They are. I don't know how long it's going to take. Hopefully, by then, the Knicks will be a decent team that maybe we see Dallas versus the Knicks in the NBA
Finals.
Championship and get to see these two teams play against one another and the Knicks shut off Kristaps Porzingis. But I don't think that's going to happen. And so the Knicks, I think the last time the Knicks this is the first time the Knicks have had a top 3 pick in about 20 years. Mm-hmm. And they've been a bad team for probably the worst NBA team for the last 30 years.
Right. And
how are you the worst team in the NBA for 30 years and have only had one top 3 pick in 20?
Yeah, it's very bizarre just looking at the pattern of it, how little they've gotten that. Even top 5 picks they haven't gotten much of either. If you want to judge that standard for a team that's that bad, poorly run for the longest time, you would think they'd be able to. I'm not saying they should get it every time, but at least be able to get it more than
the
half.
Timberwolves do.
Yeah,
the 76ers do. All these bad teams do. I mean, look at the Grizzlies last year. They were the 8th or 9th worst team in. Not the Grizzlies. I'm sorry, the Pelicans.
Right.
They were the 8th or 9th worst team in the NBA last year. They were supposed to pick at 8 or 9. They went all the way to 1.
I think they were a playoff team, or right near a playoff spot.
They went all the way to 1,
or something like that. Yeah.
So come on, and you're telling me that the New York Knicks haven't been screwed? I mean, they've been screwed, and the NBA needs to figure this out because the Knicks will never be good because nobody's going to come over here and play if they don't have players surrounding, the main players where it's going to say, you know what, if I go over there, I'm the missing piece that can help them win a championship.
Just in general, too, the policy of the lottery, the reason it's meant to be there is to have more randomness than it does, and it doesn't seem to have enough of it. I'm not saying a team should never get 2 top 5 picks ever just based on probability, but this often for the Knicks not getting it for how bad they've been?
No, they've been terrible.
Right.